So we are now recording. So let's go over these practice quiz. So reading this practice quiz, it says an article in a local newspaper reported that cats' waste has been increasingly more foul. Veterinarians say that diet and different litter will help these cats have less smelly waste. The veterinarians propose 3 different diets, diet A, B, and C, and 2 different litter 1 and litter 2. So diet A, owners control the portions of cat food and cat treats. Okay, so maybe this do like a lower calorie or something, right? It's kind of like say, you know what, we're just going to do half a cup or, whatever, they measure it out, whatever's recommended. Diet B would just be a mixture of fresh vegetables with the cat food and substitute regular cat treats with just baby carrots. And diet C would be fresh fish or plain boiled chicken with plain white rice twice per day. Litter. So those are the 3 options for food. The litter options are, number 1 would just be a popular brand of litter made with clay. Litter 2, however, is a new brand of litter made from walnuts and almonds. Okay, 60 cat owners volunteered to take part in an experiment to help their smelly cats. So your question you're going to have for your quiz will look very similar, but it'll be with like dogs. Okay, and it's kind of similar setup as far as different kind of food, different kind of this, different kind of that for their situation. It's not going to be the same situation, but something extremely similar. Okay, so identify the following, the subjects. So for this scenario, the subjects, like what's going to be tested, okay? It's going to be tested are the cats, okay? Not just any cats, but we have 60 cats. In particular, they've been identified or volunteered as being cats that have smelly waste. Okay, so we'll say 60 smelly cats. Okay. So for this question, if you just put cats, I would say half credit. If you put 60 cats, full credit. Okay, if you specifically put 60 smelly cats, even better. Okay, generally speaking, for subjects, you want to be as specific as possible for the information they gave you. You don't want to necessarily make any assumptions. You want to look at what they gave you, and based on that information, you should make the best assessment you can of what the answer is. So look for a number and look for a description of what that number represents. Okay, and I'm telling you now for your quiz, there will be a number to work with. Remember how the example we did on Tuesday was like, oh, we picked 24 tomato plants. Okay, it's that idea. This time, though, they told you how many to do versus the scenario from the book. The book one was pretty vague, right? Okay, so don't just make your own number up. Look for the number on the practice quiz, or look for the number on the actual quiz. Okay, the factors and numbers of levels of each. So this one I feel wasn't very clear on Tuesday. So I want to make sure, hopefully maybe you guys read the book, you guys went through some other resources to get a better understanding. But if you still feel like you're not quite sure what this is, like I said, Tuesday, I think it probably wasn't best described. So when we talk about the factors, like what things are being measured here, okay, like what kind of different things are happening. And right now I see there's 3 different diets and there's 2 different kinds of litter. Okay, let me just go ahead and circle that. So there's 3 different diets. So factors, the first factor is the diet. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and say diet. And I'm going to write it like this, 3 levels. If we had more space, I would probably put 3 levels and I'd put diet A, diet B, diet C. And what's the other factor they say is the litter. And how many levels for that? Well, there's 2 kinds of litter. So the factors are diet and the litter they use. And how many different types of diets are they saying? There's 3 different types of diets, so they're called 3 levels. Okay. And then for litter, when you're having the cats use different kinds of litter, how many options do they give us? They gave us 2. So 2 levels. So the factors are diet and litter. The levels, there's 3 levels for the diet and 2 levels for the litter. If you see levels as just like options, that's a great perspective to kind of think about. Okay. All right, the next part says the number of treatments. So here's kind of the shortcut, okay? For a question like this, which is pretty simply designed, you're going to have 3 levels of this and 2 levels of that. So at a very easy basic level, we're going to multiply those numbers together to get 6. Okay, so once again, I take the 3 levels and 2 levels, and what's going to happen here is we're going to mix those all up. So for diet, so we're going to have a cat with diet A in litter 1, and we'll have cats with diet A with litter 2, and we'll have cats with diet B with litter 1, and cats with diet B with litter 2, and then we'll have cats on diet C with litter 1, and cats with diet C with litter 2. So the easiest way to find out how many combinations there are, just simply multiply the levels for all your factors, okay? Giving you a heads up for the actual quiz, okay? It's gonna just be 2 factors as well. Just make sure you know how many levels there are, okay? So whatever the levels are, multiply those to get the number of treatments, okay? If there are more factors, this is more things to multiply, okay? And as that kind of like sounds right now, if you had more factors with more levels each, these tests can get very complex with a lot of design to them, which they do in the really real world. But at a basic level here, we're just going to do the real easy to design. Okay, so when you do this, don't just say the 6 treatments. Okay, number of treatments, 6 treatments. You're expected, so that would be half credit. Okay, same thing, half credit if you just put diet and litter. Okay, but full credit gives you, if you talk about the correct number of levels for each also. Okay, the number of treatments, you're also expected to identify identify all of them. Okay, so if you have space, write it out nice and pretty. I'm going to write it in a shorthand. I'm going to say you have diet A in treatment 1, diet A, I'm sorry, in litter 1, diet A in litter 2, diet B in litter 1, diet B with litter 2, diet C with litter 1, and diet C with litter 2. So once again, you're going to mix all those together and go in that sequence. Okay, go with the first one and then do each of those. Go to the next one, do each of those. Go to this one, do each of those. Okay. So question D now is whether or not the experiment is blind or double blind. So thinking about this for a moment, okay, and blind, remember, means that the person or the subject does not know what they're getting. Okay, like for example, like a blind taste test is a perfect example. Okay, or blind food test, or maybe someone is in some sort of study for medicine and they don't know what, if they're getting a fake pill or the real pill, right, the placebo or the actual medication. That would be blind from the participant, but it can also be blind by the evaluator. Okay, and a double blind would be both the people being tested or the subjects being tested or the person doing the evaluation. So on a question like this, do you think the treatments, the cats, do you think the cats know what their diet and what kind of litter they're using? Yeah, because they're the ones eating it. They're the ones doing going to the litter box. So of course it sounds obvious that the participants or the subjects are not going to be blind in this scenario. However, who's going to be doing the evaluation? Okay. I'm thinking right now. Oh, someone just sent a little message. What's happening? Eating litter. Yeah, right. Yuck. Okay. So what's happened? So with the evaluation, what might happen is the results could be put on paper or digitally, whatever, and they might not have like a open, like the person that's collecting all the data, right? That's doing like the evaluation. They might not know the cat owners, like which plan did they have, right? Like which treatment did they use? So the person doing the evaluation might not know the information they're getting to do an analysis on it. That would be the best scenario. So it might not be blind, but I know it's not going to be double blind. So the way we write that, once again, you got to kind of think here, and you got to, if you were going to design this, how could you try to make this as blind as possible? Because double blind generally has the best results, okay, because they're not tainted by the participants or the evaluators, okay? By doing things blind generally gives you, like I said, the most authentic results. However, in some situations like this, you just can't do double blind. It's not the right scenario. So what we're going to do is we're going to say this. We're going to say at best, because we don't know the process. They didn't tell us how they're going to do the evaluation process. Okay, at best, we could say single blind. Because the evaluators of the study might not be given the treatments. So what I mean by that, let me zoom in on that. Okay, what I mean by at best single blind because the evaluators of the study might not be given the treatments. What I mean by that is, right, the people that get the data to study, they might just say, here's someone that's part of group 2, but group 2 might be C1, and then group 3 might be like B1. You know what I mean? Like they might randomize those treatment like labels just so that the people evaluating the study might just say, you know what, according to our notes and according to this, we say study number 2 was the best diet and litter combination to minimize or reduce any sort of foul odors from a cat's waste. And at that point, then whoever designed the study says, okay, study number 2, that was A1. You know, they might randomize stuff like that to hopefully not influence the evaluators, because the evaluators might say, oh, you know what? I think fish and plain boiled chicken with white rice, that'd probably be really good for cats with the walnuts and almonds might do the best for the smell or something like that. So they might have some sort of thing that they might influence how they look at the analysis or something. I'm not quite sure. But that could be the best. That's at best. But I would probably expect something like this might not be blind at all. But hopefully the evaluators could potentially be blind in that situation. Okay. The last part here, they identify the following would be the response variable. So the response variables at the very end. Like, what are you actually trying to fully measure here? So you got all these different diet and litter combinations. What's the actual goal of the study? Like what are they studying? Not just the cats, but what about the cats? It's the odor of the cat waste. So I'm gonna kind of write it down here because kind of ran out of space there. Okay, but that's the answer to that one. So once again, you will be expected to type these kind of answers out, okay, for your quiz. I would say the response variable, if you put, I don't know, I can't really think how to get half credit for that, but just try to make sure that whatever they're trying to achieve and study, that's your response variable. And then I'll talk a little bit more through this process, because when you design your experiment, this thing here is going to be on the far left, okay? And then through your little sequence in the very right side, that's going to be your response variable. Okay, so if that kind of helps you guys out to think about what to put here and the connection to down here to your experimental design, the subjects, that should be written on the far left. I'm going to put 60 smelly cats. I apologize. I didn't even read the question. Okay, so design an experiment to determine whether the diet and litter changes are effective in helping cats be less smelly. Okay, so the subjects go here and the response variable is going to come here. Okay, and it's always going to be about comparing the results. So compare the odor of cat waste. That sounds like an awesome study to do, right? I want to compare the odor of cat waste. Okay, so how are we going to design this thing? Remember how we did this whole thing where we talked about having arrows go here and arrows go there and stuff, and then we kind of wrote random assignment on it? We're going to do the same thing. We're going to take those 60 cats, we're going to put them into groups. How many groups are we going to put them into? Right here. You see how it says 6 treatments? So whatever the number of treatments are, that's how many little arrows we're going to make. So I do this. I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I start from the middle and I kind of branch out, but you can do any method you want. As far as these lining up, you should try to get them to kind of line up. Apologize for mine not kind of writing at an angle, so I guess I'm not really giving an excuse. I'm just giving a reason for why mine's all funky looking. Okay, so you should have 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. One for each treatment. Now, when you throw them into each treatment, how are you going to do that? So there's a few ways you can do that. I'm just going to write on top, which is the common method to do it. Whoops, random assignment. So by saying random assignment across here, I've seen it just kind of written on the top or the bottom or whatever. But traditionally, what they want you to do is say, as you separate them into the 6 groups, you're going to do that randomly. Okay. Now, you don't got to get too specific in it. You just got to say random assignment. Okay. If you were going to be doing a project, an actual project about this, you would spend a little bit of time. How would you put them into random assignment? Would you do a simple one? Would you do a cluster one? How would you do that? Okay. So we've got 60 cats, and we're going to randomly put them into 6 groups. So we have group 1. We got group 2. We've got group 3. And believe it or not, we got groups 4, 5, and 6 too.
Mr. Atterbury?
Yes, sir.
So about about part D of question 1.
Yes.
Would it be? I mean, it would be blind for the litter, but would it really be blind for the food? Because I mean, they can see the food they're eating.
Well, I'm thinking right now, you got a cat, okay? And let's say that cat has smelly food or smelly poop, right? And you volunteer yourself to take part of this experiment. And so you're being told as a cat owner to give to the cat, your pet cat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here's a new diet, okay? You're going to do this food, but I want you to limit it to this. You're going to give them this treats, but you're going to limit it to this during these times of the day. So the cats and the owners know exactly what's happening. It's not like, if it was blind for the animals, right? If it was blind for the participants, that might look like this. That might look like, let's say, because you see how like the diets are so diverse, right?
Yeah.
You've got like cat food versus like cat food mixed with fresh vegetables, right? And then like this whole idea of just like fish and rice or chicken and rice for these animals. If they were just different, let's say different food groups or different cat food, but they look the same. Okay, so imagine if you're taking a study and they just gave everyone like a plain brown bag or something like that, and you don't know what cat food you have, but it has some like serial number or some number on there, where the people doing the full study know, okay, person that had the brown bag labeled 1263 or something, they have some back-end tracking mechanism that says, or process that says, oh, they had this treatment, oh, they had that treatment. That would be blind if it all kind of looked the same, you know what I mean? And the owner didn't know which one they were giving their cat. That would be blind from the participants' end. But I would argue, since the fact that the diets are so different, that the people doing the study, the cats and their owners, probably know that something's changed. You know, they probably know exactly what they're doing. So,
I thought that since you wrote single blind, I thought you were saying that the subjects were the ones that were blind, not the evaluator. Okay.
Right. So when it says blind, there's 2 options. It's like an and or. If it's and, it's double. If it's or, it's single. But this might also, like, if you, and this is where I want you guys to write it in, and this is where I don't want to have it multiple choice, okay, is if you argued that it was double blind and you came up with a great reason that just makes logical sense, I would give you credit for it, okay? This is the best that I could come up with, because I've seen similar questions to this, and they always kind of come to the same conclusion, that in certain scenarios, it's pretty much impossible to do a single blind. Like, it just doesn't make any sense for the study. But there's a lot of times you can always kind of argue that the evaluators can do it blindly. It's difficult to do that. It takes a lot more prep and planning, and it takes a longer process, whatever. And so it's not always done. But remember, the participants or the evaluators can be blind. If it's them and then right, if the subjects and the evaluators are both blind, that's called the double blind. The evaluators only is single. The subjects only, single. Okay, if neither one are blind in the study, which happens, okay, then there's no blind. Okay, it's just, you just say it's not a blind experiment. Okay, and that's why you'll see commonly used at best. So like, because if any part of the process is blind, they say it just adds better authenticity, and it just kind of, it improves your results. You know, it's like, oh well, the people doing the evaluations, like, you know, maybe they worked, or they had money from the cat litter industry, and so they want to make sure that it just kind of skewed towards one cat litter or the other. You know, like, a lot of times in these scientific studies, or studies that have to do with like a consumer's product. Okay, so something like buying food or buying litter or buying this or buying that. What kind of comes out later is, oh, like who had money to fund something like that? Oh, the cat litter industry funded it, or oh, the cat food industry funded the study. So maybe there's some like bias towards one food or the other. You know what I mean? Like they don't want to see people just use chicken and fish and rice to feed their animals. We want them to keep buying this food, you know? So they might, you know, so by having things blind, they just give more authenticity to the results. So if you can come up with a good excuse for one or the other or both, whatever, or none, as long as you have a sound argument here, I will give you full credit. You know, it's 1.5. Okay. I will give you full credit for this problem. Okay. Because this has 1.5, 1.5, 1.5, 1.5, 1.5. This right here is 75% of your test. This is 25%. Okay. I didn't want to do like two points, 2 points, 2 points, 2 points, 2. No, I wanted to make sure this had some more weight for these individual questions, but I didn't want this question to be like half credit. You know what I mean? I didn't want you to fail this quiz because you struggled with this. Like, you can still pass this quiz if you can answer these questions correctly. That's 75% of the quiz. Okay. This is the remaining 25%. So if you can do this at a high level and get these all right and make good arguments, and you can design this, you know, at least halfway right, you're going to get at least like a 90% or higher, you know, 9 or 10 points. So did that kind of clarify the whole blind or double blind? And
yeah, I was thinking that you had written that the
subjects
that would be blind was the cats, not the evaluator. And so I was like, well, I thought it would be like obvious that like what they're using. But okay, that makes more sense.
right. So yeah, so just to be clear, once again, you basically have 4 options here. Option 1, no one is blind, so everyone knows what's happening. Option 2 would be the cats don't know what they're eating, but it's pretty obvious that they know what they're eating. Okay. Or the opposite, that, you know, like the owners know what they're feeding them. You know what I mean? Option 3 would be that the evaluators, okay, don't know what they're evaluating. They're just getting like data to look at and compare this numbers to this numbers and go, oh, these numbers look better, or these numbers look worse, or whatever. And then option 4 would be, oh, the subjects and the evaluators are blind. So it's either going to be no, yes to the subjects, yes to the evaluators, or yes to both. If it's yes to both, it's double blind. If it's yes to one of them, it's just single blind. If it's yes to none of them, it's just a not blind experiment. Cool. And then last, yeah, okay. So one more time. Thanks for the question. Great question. Where we leave off, I left off here. We have our subjects. They're randomly assigned into 6 groups. And when we do this, we usually, you should list how many of these go here. Okay. Remember, you're designing this so that someone could actually do this. Okay. Like, you know, you should try to get 60 volunteers. And then in each group, you're going to put them into groups of what? What will make sense? 10, right? So we'll put 10 cats. It's kind of a pain to write this, but this is how we design them. Okay. If you knew how to read these designs and someone gave you this design, you'd be like, wow, I know exactly what to do, and try to replicate what you did. Okay. And let's see if I get the same or similar results. So in group 1, we're going to do treatment 1. So if you already wrote this stuff out, which you should to get full credit, okay, for that question, group 1, we can just say A1. So diet A, which with litter 1. And then Group 2 would be this one, Group 3, Group 4, Group 5, Group 6. So I'm going to go ahead and right here on the side, I'm going to put diet A, litter 1. Now, looking at this, it's like AA, BB, CC. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do that. I'm going to do diet A, diet B, diet B, and then I'll fill in the litter choices at the end. So 2 diet A's because there's 2 different litters, 2 diet B's because there's 2 different litters, and 2 diet C's because there's 2 different litters. So you see how group 1 and group 2 are different. They're similar. They're both using diet A, but they're using different kinds of litter. And then diet B, once again, there's 2 groups of those because there's litter 1 and litter 2. So it's highly recommended. You don't have to. You can still get full credit, but it's highly recommended, and it makes it easier for me to grade it, is if you have a nice, easy, clear system like I did, okay, where I go in some sort of order. Okay, maybe I put litter 1, litter 1, litter 1, litter 2, litter 2, litter 2, and then I say like diet A, diet B, diet C, diet A, diet B, diet C. There's, I would say, 2 clean ways to write that. But if you still wrote it differently, but you still covered all 6 of those treatments and there was no weird stuff going on, you could still get full credit. It just kind of makes it more difficult to grade. Like I got to filter through it. So there's multiple options of how to write it cleanly. I can think of 2 different ways to do it, but just make sure that whoever's reading it can clearly read what you're trying to say. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is, right, like we did with the other one, I'm going to go ahead and what I like to do is kind of pick like a point over here and then draw it backwards. So instead of going left to right, I'll draw right to left. So this one, that one, that one, that one, that one. That kind of helps my arrows kind of go to one point. Sometimes if you go from left to right to one point, it can be kind of difficult to judge where you're writing to. So my personal preference is to start from the right and go left. Whew. Okay. So everything here was prepping for down here. Okay. This goes at the left side of your design. The bottom one, E, goes to the right side of your design. And then the middle section, okay, is pretty much the middle thing, the number of treatments. Okay. Now, what you can do, okay, if you know a spot where it can be blind, you might want to put that on your experiment also. So if you're saying something like there's blind, you might want to put where it was blind. Okay. It's not necessarily this is kind of like a question mark because we don't know. They didn't tell us that they're going to compare them in a blind method. Okay. We just said we think it might be, that it would be cool if they could somehow, that whoever's doing this test finds a way that when they compare the results, they don't know and they're not influenced by the type of diet or the type of litter. And they're not going to like say, oh, this person said this in response, but I'm not going to like judge that the same as something different. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording so the recording doesn't go on for too long. And let's have a discussion.